So hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Jessalyn Randall. I'll be moderating this debate. The topic will be the natural human diet. With me today is Joey and Brandon. Each debater will have 2 minutes to defend their position. To get started, Brandon, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what your position is on this topic?
Hello, my name is Brandon Blevins. My position on this topic is, it's hard to say exactly throughout human history to be fully sure what the timelines are when we started eating meat and we didn't. My belief, I got some birdies, they might chirp a little bit. My belief is that we started out as frugivores. We started out eating mostly fruit in West Africa for millions of years before we found the application of fire, and that's how our GI tracts evolved. That's how our applications evolved in our bodies and so forth. And I'm very interested in talking about just like results over the board of treatments in people in the present day, but I'm also happy to discuss the history as well.
Okay, Joey, do you want to introduce yourself and state your position?
Yeah. My name is Joey. I am a believer, as you all know, in the carnivore diet simply because I believe that it most closely parallels the diet that we have evolved on. And I'm really adamant on the idea that the safest bet when it comes to ensuring good health is to eat the diet that our ancestors ate, because everything in nature eats their natural diet and they don't get these Western illnesses. Therefore, I believe it's our safest bet to do the same thing. And the reason why I believe eating meat is a natural human diet is because while I agree with Brandon in that we started as frugivores, Australopithecus ate primarily fruit. In the past, I believe 4.5 million years, we've come down from the trees, started eating meat, and have evolved to eat meat. We've lost the ability to ferment fiber. Everything is more bioavailable in animal foods. Omega-3 metabolism relies on animal foods. We get into ketosis very easily. We're well adapted to high fat. We have a super low stomach pH. Everything physiologically, anatomically, anthropologically seems to be in alignment with the idea that we ate lots of meat. And that's what I believe our natural human diet is. That's what I believe people should be eating.
Okay, so Brandon, how do you respond when people say that we are meant to eat meat right now and it is the most bioavailable thing that a human can eat?
I think meat is edible. I don't think it's food. So meat is the most difficult thing for the human body to process. It leaves the most nitrogenous byproducts from the animal as well. You have to deal with the animal's nitrogenous byproducts as well as your own. You have to eliminate both. More metabolic byproducts from breaking down animal protein. Animal protein takes more energy for the body to break down, so it's the least efficient. Takes the most energy. Also, yeah, we'll leave it there. And just let you have your turn.
Joey, do you have a response?
Well, as far as digestion goes, I'm not sure it's right to say it's the most difficult to digest, given that we can't even digest fiber. I mean, we can't convert fiber to an adequate amount of short chain fatty acids like gorillas can. I mean, when they're deriving, you want to mute yourself real quick, sorry. When they're deriving like 80% of their nutrition from saturated fat because they're converting the fiber to short chain fatty acids, we don't have that ability. So we need to, if we're going to rely on proper nutrition, it's pretty much going to have to be meat. I don't think it's the most difficult to digest. I think it's the easiest thing to digest. It doesn't go right through us like fiber does. It goes, it's basically purely digestible. A lot of people sometimes on carnivore, they'll say, well, I'm constipated. It's actually not constipation. It's simply the body using all of the meat that it's getting. There's not much to pass through since meat is just pure nutrition. So I don't really buy the idea that it's difficult to digest, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on I'm sorry to like mess up the moderation thing, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on the idea that humans have eaten meat for the past roughly 4.5 million years. You think that's not true?
According to my studies, we didn't start cooking food until like 1.2 to 2 million years ago. And our brains doubled in size like 4 million years ago. So we got smarter before we started eating meat. This is a disagreement in the community, but this is what I've found through my research.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's okay. Yeah, I believe that our brains got bigger before we started eating meat. I think that we used to be extremely advanced civilizations, and those civilizations did not eat meat. I think there was a fall of consciousness, and we fell into some dark ages, and we had to survive. When we moved away from the tropics and paradise, we had to do what we had to do, and we began eating meat. And your body can live on almost anything. Like you can live on Oreos and potato chips and survive. That doesn't mean you're going to be healthy. But yeah, I don't think that it's optimal. I don't think we were designed for it. I do think there's a creator and a designer, and I don't think that's the design that we have.
Is your belief that human brain size doubled 4 million years ago corroborated by any studies or anything? Because as far as I know, it was much more recent than that, actually in alignment with new hunting practices and basically reliance on meat. I'm not sure if you've heard of the gut expensive tissue hypothesis, where basically we used to have very, very big guts that we would use to ferment lots of fiber because that's what predominated our diet. And then our brains getting bigger in basically concordance with an increased consumption of meat, simply because we needed less of that gut space and that energy was allocated more towards brain development. And then also it would make sense because in the past 10,000 years, our brains have gone from roughly 15 cubic centimeters to about 1,350 cubic centimeters, which aligns perfectly with the commencement of the agricultural revolution. So I think that makes a lot of sense as well. And there's also a recent study published in Neurology that found that vegans basically had a 5% reduction in their brain size over a period of 5 years. So like, to me, everything sort of lines up so that it makes sense that eating plants would cause a decrease in the brain size, while eating meat would evolutionarily over a period of time cause an increase in brain size. But I'm curious how you came across the concept that maybe it was 4 million years ago. I've never heard that. Oh, you're muted. You're muted. So there you go.
That's what I found through my research. About when we first started out as, I guess, like sapiens was like, what, 6 million years ago. We found fire about 4-ish million years ago, and about the same time our brains started getting bigger, and we didn't actually have the application to use it to cook food until maybe, I find a lot of different things, maybe from like 400,000 years ago to like 2 million years ago was when we first started cooking.
I think your dates are a little bit messed up. Homo sapiens were like between 200 and 3,000 years ago, and then Homo originated about 3 million years ago. Like, did you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You might be more correct on the history. I'll be honest. I can give you that. But we can also debate. We can definitely debate people's results with their health, and like a lot of people talk about the Maasais and the Inuits, and the Maasais have an average lifespan of like 42 years old, and the women have an average lifespan of like 44.
Well, if you count for child deaths, it's about equal to United States, if you account for the child deaths. And also there's recently a Maasai woman who lived till 122. But really quick, so I'm trying to understand this. Give me a sec. So I thought we each like accept the premise, at least, that eating the natural human diet is basically like what's best to ensure optimal health. And so are you going to like concede that humans evolved eating meat? Because I think that's the first thing that we need to establish, like what the natural human diet is. Because if you concede that it's meat, then aren't you?
You even said yourself we started out as frugivores.
Absolutely, but 4.5 million years is a long time.
Right. And so when did we start eating meat, and like what about our physiology tells you that we are, like, if you wanted to go eat a cow right now, like what about your physiology tells you that you can just go eat the cow and just go for it?
Well, I think you're alluding to the idea that we don't have claws and fangs like a lot of the lions and hyenas do, which can be explained by using tools. And I mean, as we both know, right, we came from frugivores. So the way evolution, the way natural selection and adaptations work is you only lose abilities when there's a selective pressure to against them or for them. But you want to mute yourself real quick. Um, so for example, when if you want to say, humans don't have claws, therefore we're not herbivores, it simply doesn't make sense, because think about what getting claws would have come at the expense of. If we obtain claws, right, and we can go grab animals and jump at them, then we can't nurture our children because we can't hold them. Literally, we can't. If we would have developed these massive fangs in our mouth so we can lunge at animals with our teeth, we wouldn't have been able to communicate. It would have come at the expense of communication. So there was no selective pressure to make these adaptations when we could simply just get tools and kill animals. As you said, tools were an advent. They've been around for a very, very long time. And there's tons of cave paintings of these humans with these massive bows and sticks and sharp things going after animals. And there's no cave paintings of people eating plants. It's relatively uncommon. So I'm not sure that's like a fair point to say that our physiology, just because it doesn't mirror that of a lion, for example, that we're not carnivores. But do you have any other sort of quarrels with the idea that we've eaten lots of meat through our evolution?
So what do you think about cooking? Because we're the only species on the planet that cooks our food.
Okay.
I do think that causes the majority of our health issues. We don't process raw meat very well. I mean, you might have an argument for that, but I don't think we're designed for that. And so, what's your idea on cooking food, cooking meat, and we'll start there.
I think raw meat can be digested perfectly fine. For most people, I think it's if anyone has an issue eating raw meat, it's more of a psychological conditioning component to it. There's plenty of examples of the Inuit like ripping an animal to pieces and just gorging on raw meat simply because they haven't been conditioned to believe that there's something wrong with that. So I don't really buy the idea that we shouldn't eat raw meat, or that it's a problem, or that we're not able to. I'm not really sure how that, like, even if we were, I'm not sure how that like supports your point, because we have been cooking for quite some time. I'm just curious, like, do you think that we were eating mostly plants for the past million years when we've been able to cook meat, or do like what do you think the human diet looked like in the past million years?
I mean, it depends. Humans went out all over different parts of the earth, and they lived
Fair.
different lives. Some people had lived agricultural lives where they did eat mostly plants. They did eat mostly fruits, and they would eat meat sometimes on occasion. On celebrations, they would kill a bison and they would have meat. It wasn't like they had meat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Other than the Maasai and the Inuits, I don't know of any other cultures that do that.
Well, I think it's pretty ubiquitous that meat is preferential, and that when meat is available, they prefer it. I mean, I do agree with you in that it's that fruit is prioritized, like definitely in the Hadza, they really like honey, they like fruit, and that's up there with meat. So I do believe that when fruit is available, we eat it without question. It's sweet, it tastes good, and there's reasons for that. There's reasons for that. So absolutely. But to think that it predominated the human diet when it's simply not possible for our brains to have increased so much, it's simply not possible for our like the brains thing, for us to get into ketosis so easily, just for us to do so well in ketosis, like it just doesn't seem to make sense and be in alignment with the actual human outcomes. So no, again,
So how do you what do you think about ketosis long term? Because from what I'm found, it doesn't look great after a certain amount of years of being in ketosis. I think a big reason why carnivore works is because you cut out a lot of bullshit. Just like anytime you cut out processed foods and you eat mono meals, you're going to do pretty well off the bat. Your blood markers will look pretty good. But long term, I don't know of any long-term carnivores who are like 80, 90 years old who are doing well. You might, because I don't study it the way you do, except for like the woman in Masai, but I doubt she's full carnivore. She probably eats, fruit and honey when it comes her way.
Yeah.
But what's the reason to not have, like, I'm really not dogmatic. Like, with my clients, I'll tell them, hey, if you want to have some animal protein, have a little animal protein, but I try to get them to eat living foods as much as possible and not dead food. And there's also like, there's a spiritual reason for that. And also like the quantum world, we can now photograph food and we can see the aura, the biophoton count, Carillion photography. You can take pictures of meat, take pictures of food, and you can see the aura, the light around it. And we're light bodies, where our bodies are made of light. We're electromagnetic beings. So when we're missing out on at least just a little bit of living food, we're missing out on that, getting those biophotons in and that sort of communication throughout the body as well. But what's your take on like why? Because I think it's a new thing to just do all carnivore and like leave out fruit. Because if you're in nature and you saw this big juicy watermelon, and like the tribe's eating it, you're gonna be like, nah, that's cool, I'm carnivore. Like that's probably not likely. You're gonna have some. So what is the actual reason why to go all carnivore and like no carbohydrates whatsoever?
Yeah, I think that's more of a measure for people who are in serious metabolic failure. It kind of makes sense. I mean, if you're combining like fruit, like the sugar and the fat, it's easier to put on actual fat versus if you're just eating meat, like protein and fat. The mechanism by which you can put on body fat in that way is pretty difficult. So it's more like, and as you know, I mean, we're in a health epidemic, serious problems. Most people who start carnivore have serious health issues. In such a case, it makes more sense, I would say, just to adhere to just strictly meat and fat, because the addition of fruit would probably make it easier to pack on body fat, like I said. But me personally, if I see, I have an orange tree outside. If I crave fruit, which I do on occasion, I'm going to eat some. If I want some berries or something, I'm going to eat some. It's not really an issue for me, because I 100% in nature, if that opportunity presented itself, we would absolutely take it. My main point is that like the actual nuance and whether to include some fruit or not is kind of like minor in my opinion. I just want to understand why, if meat predominated the human diet for so long, since we've been human, since well before we've been human, then why wouldn't we at least be animal based? I mean, as far as Paul Saladino goes, like if he eating some fruit, it might be good, but I think animal based is what we absolutely should do. And I'm curious why you think we shouldn't if we've done it for so long.
Have you ever killed and cleaned your own animal before eating it?
No, but I'm actually going to pretty soon. I'm going to like live on a farm in Europe and do that myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me know how that feels, because it's a weird feeling. When I first went vegetarian, I went back and forth for a while. I used to be a bodybuilder. I was 60 pounds heavier. I was fucking massive, dude. Lean and mean. I went back and forth for a while, and rather than like being cerebral about it and just going into, because you can get lost in all the facts, but from your own experience, like you guys have had your own experience. Like I think maybe you've healed some health issues. You feel really good, and you're doing it because it feels good, and hopefully, and not because someone told you this is the best way, or someone convinced you that this is the diet or whatever. It's based on what you feel and your experimentation as a human being. So I went back and forth for a while. I had a boss. He was a plant-based trainer, and that was his niche in the personal training business. I was a personal trainer for a few years. He's like, hey, I'll pay you $2 extra an hour to go vegan. And I was like, okay, fuck it, I'll try it. So I tried it for like 6 months. And then I went back to meat, and I had to force myself. It was really interesting. I'd never had this experience. It was just like not the same. It didn't hit right. It didn't feel right. So I went back and forth again for more and more years. I was with my friend in Cuba, and they were having dinner, and they were gonna kill the rooster for dinner. And they were like, "Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Why not, man? I've eaten like 1,000 chickens in my life. I might as well know what it's like." So I wrung its neck, and I felt its neck vertebra snap under my hand, and then it was still running around and stuff. And I just felt, I got these shivers and this adrenaline. My hand was shaking, and I was just like, "I'm not supposed to do this. Like, this isn't what I'm supposed to do," And I think it's if you're starving and you got to do it, you're going to do it. You're going to do anything if you're hungry. But if you don't have to, I don't think most human beings who eat meat haven't killed an animal. And if they did, they wouldn't have fun. Like if they had to slaughter a cow by hand, it wouldn't be like this natural, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do it. It would feel weird. And so just kind of going based off of that as well, not from a moral standpoint of like putting people down or anything, but just from my experience. That's also the part that tells me that we've been making a mistake, or we've been doing it from a survival standpoint because we just had to. We didn't have a choice.
Okay, well, I think the more primitive societies wouldn't really buy into that, given that, I mean, I've seen videos of Inuit like cutting through animals and they're excited. I mean, they don't have that jittery feeling of killing an animal or anything because they haven't been conditioned by society to think there's anything wrong or abnormal. I really, I do get what you're saying. There's a psychological component to it that doesn't really seem to be in alignment with a passive carnivory. I understand that completely, but I don't think that we can discount the power of what, media does, how we're impacted by things that we see, and views just imposed on us by the world. I don't think, like, I feel like you kind of answered the question and kind of evaded it at the same time, because I don't think that you wouldn't even agree that that's proof that we're not carnivores by nature. I think we can both agree that that's not solid proof. I think there's also really good evidence that just in our bones that we have stable nitrogen 15 isotope testing that's showing that we ate meat. I mean, that our protein came from meat and not plants. So again, I'm just curious, do you think that meat predominated the human diet? And if it did, why would anything besides a natural diet be best for humans? I'm sorry to be like continuously like repeating the same thing, but I'm just still kind of confused, I feel like, on your actual viewpoint.
No, it's okay. No, I think it's been a mistake. We've been making mistakes for a long time. Just cooking our food in general has been a mistake. There really was such a thing as the Garden of Eden, and we were very advanced beings, and we were eating mostly living foods. And then so at some point we lost connection to the source. We lost connection to the source of life, and we began killing animals and eating meat, and then along that other things like rape and murder and a lot of other stuff as well. But we felt they call it the fall of consciousness, essentially. And are you familiar with the yugas? Tell me if I'm skipping around the question again. I feel like I'm not. I'm trying to. I think I answered it clearly the first time, but there's in India. First of all, there's a whole culture that doesn't eat meat in the East, and they've done that for thousands and thousands of years, for a long time, and they seem to be doing fine. Their health is great. So it's hard to be super dogmatic and black and white and say we're this, we're that. Like, there's a lot of success for carnivores for however many years that they go carnivore, and there's a lot of success for people who choose to eat like more raw foods. But there's something called the yugas, the Kali. Right now we're in Kali Yuga. It's according to the Bhagavad Gita, the past like 25,000 years or so, where the vibration of the earth is the lowest it's ever been. We have cosmic seasons. And so our consciousness has basically been suppressed for, I don't know, 10, 15,000 years since Atlantis. And even before that, when people were roaming the earth. And so I think it's been a mistake. I think we've been making mistakes this whole time.
Okay. So you at least acknowledge that we've been eating meat, but doing so was a mistake.
I think it was something we had to do. We had to do it because we moved away from our natural habitat, which is the tropics. Okay,
and that's fine. If we had to do it due to force, like being forced to do it, that's fine. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we did it, and that physiologically, just it's what we've done for a million years. Therefore, we're so well adapted to it that it's our optimal diet. I mean, I feel like you did. I feel like you did answer the question. You did, and I just, but the way you answered it was by saying, yes, we've been eating meat, but it's been a mistake. And I'm not sure how you can say that nature running its course was a mistake. I mean, it's nature. It's not like there's some sort of hand that's guiding it and completely just facilitating everything that happens in nature. It's nature. It just happened. So to say that it was a mistake, that survival was a mistake, because we needed to eat meat to survive. So if you're saying that our decision to eat meat was a mistake, you're basically saying that the survival of humanity was predicated on a mistake, which I just don't see the validity in at all.
I mean, it was a mistake that maybe we had to make at some point to survive, just to live. But if you don't have to make that mistake anymore, then why make it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a mistake that we made to survive. How could that be a mistake if it ensured our survival?
No, we were forced to make this mistake of beginning to eat meat. We were
But
forced to do that
yeah,
at some point.
okay. So we're forced to make a decision that allowed us to survive. How could that decision have been a mistake if it allowed us to survive? If we were forced to do it, we needed to do it to survive, right?
So how about like tribal wars? Like, you know, the next tribe is going to come over here and rape my wife and kill my family. So I have to kill him first. It doesn't mean that murder is okay. They had to do war. It was a mistake. People have been making mistakes because their consciousness, again, has been suppressed for quite some time. Things like war, murder, rape, killing in general, is quite new in human history, I do believe. I don't think it's like in the whole scheme of our existence. I think that, again, we were very advanced beings at one time. And as super advanced beings, we didn't need to have animal protein, and we felt much better, and I think do feel much better when we eat lighter foods. The less that you need to take in, the better you're going to feel, the more clarity you're going to have. A lot of times there's an idea that like bigger is better, more is better. But oftentimes, like I recently just did a 77-day juice cleanse. And during the whole time I was working out, I was feeling strong. I've never felt better in my life. And I released 25 pounds of waste out of my colon, which was amazing. I weighed myself before and after every movement. And it was like someone wiped a windshield of gunk off my excuse me, but like my eye, you know what I'm saying? And I was able to have like clarity for the first time in my life. It was amazing. And I had the most energy I've ever had in my life. And I was on liquids for like 3 months. And I felt like I could have kept going, but I decided to stop. And it's been just like mostly fruit and like a salad every other day since then. And I feel really good. I work out. And so I think it's hard to say based on history, because there's a lot of people who live that lifestyle and they feel really good. There's people who run ultra marathons who are fruitarians, you know. So and
Okay.
yeah, so if you ever try it, for me it's really like it's just been a part of my spiritual walk. Like again, going back and forth, I just felt naturally pulling away from the heaviness and the denseness. And when I went to massage school as this big bodybuilder, I noticed all these densities and tenseness in my tissues. And it became such an issue because I became so aware of it, but there's nothing I can do. And I was so tight all the time. And when I stopped eating meat and I just went to lighter foods, my tissues finally relaxed. The knots finally let go. I was finally able to be flexible. And when my body and my tissues relaxed, my mind relaxed. Like your brain gets knots the same way your muscles get knots. And so when you begin to eat lighter foods, you just become lighter, you feel lighter, you just are able to be more relaxed. And that this is just, you know, personal experience. I have no anecdote for that, but
Okay.
that was like the reason why I couldn't go back, because of the fasting work. Really, the fasting work showed me what it feels like to be at ground zero and to be super clean in that moment.
Brandon, do you believe that the human diet does not need meat, that you can get everything that you need from fruits and vegetables?
I think in an ideal world, but unfortunately we might not live in an ideal world anymore. So you might need to take a B12, and you might need to eat a handful of Brazil nuts or an avocado for some DHA. I think at one point we were able to produce our own B12, either that or it came from the soil. And unfortunately, the soil isn't what it used to be. So a big part of healing the earth right now is healing the soil. And there's a lot of big projects that are trying to do that right now. And that's even affecting the quality of the meat. That affects everybody, you know, is the soil health, unfortunately. So that we need to take care of that regardless of what our beliefs about anything is.
Yeah. I mean, you okay. I mean, like you spent a lot of time talking about your own personal experience, which I think is great. And if it works for you, then that's great. I just I worry that this is not going to work for a lot of people based on what I've seen. I mean, before we get into results, I think we pretty much exhausted the natural diet thing. I you know, we both acknowledge that meat was a part of the human diet. I guess the extent to which it was is debatable. I mean, personally, I still am very basically positive that it was the majority, that we were animal based. It's just as Homo sapiens, that's what we were. But you know, either way, I guess you think it was a mistake that we started eating meat. I don't really see how that's the case. But I mean, I guess.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's fine. That was pretty much it. I guess I was just saying. I guess we can kind of move on unless you have anything else you want to add to the whole natural diet thing.
Yeah, I think our species specific diet is a raw fruitarian diet, raw vegan. It's the cleanest, it's the most efficient, less byproducts, cleanest lymph system, lightest tissues, takes the least amount of energy to digest. So evolutionarily,
Okay.
we don't have to use as much energy on digestion, which takes up 50 to 60% of our energy. But that's in an ideal world, in our ideal environment. So I'm not going to tell an Inuit to go fruitarian. You know?
Right.
There's some logic to it. So.
Okay, so like the fact that you're saying that this is a species, that the human species specific diet is a raw fruitarian diet, is kind of strange to me. It's very strange because by that logic, you would be suggesting that it's possible for a species specific diet for a lion to be anything besides meat. Like, for example, a species specific diet for a lion might be grass, or a species specific diet for a chimpanzee might be little rabbits or bugs. It's like, these are not the case. These are not in alignment with what they ate evolutionarily. So I just want to ask, like, one more time, just so I really understand your point of view. Doesn't a species specific diet have to mimic, at least to a moderate degree, the food that we ate to become the species that we are? The natural diet doesn't it have to, like, there has to be some concordance between them, right? Oh, you're muted.
Out of the grand timeline of how long humans have existed and even our ancestors, and how short of a time we've been cooking food and eating meat, I don't think it plays a huge role.
Okay, so
I think it plays a huge role. In fact, like, for instance, like, the only reason that we have the enzymes to digest meat is because we're eating meat. If you stop eating meat, you're going to stop producing those enzymes, which tells me that's not a core function.
Okay, so just so I can understand this, so you think that, so we have eaten meat for the past million years, but simply, or maybe even longer than that, but when you put that relative to the amount of time we've been frugivores, it's negligible, and we should be eating the diet that we ate before we consume meat? Just is that what you believe?
Correct.
Okay, so you don't think that the change in the past 4.5 million years, like losing the ability to ferment fiber, the appendix becoming a vestigial organ, having everything be more bioavailable in meat, the expensive gut, the gut, brain swap, basically, like, you don't think any of those changes would be indicative of an actual difference in the optimal human diet? Like, you think it would still be the diet that precedes the commencement of hunting and eating meat?
Yes, because when we started hunting and eating meat, that's when all violence broke out. We used to be a peaceful people, and then that's when war broke out, war, pestilence. That's when rape and all these things happen. Because when you get the adrenaline, you get the adrenochrome from meat, you get all these hormones, you get all these things. There's it basically. Now I don't want to feel like I'm like attacking you. No, but it causes a person to be more aggressive. A lot of things happen when we started eating meat that weren't happening before. War being one of them. things as such, So I do think that we were better before. I think we were just like a really passive, peaceful, and actually very advanced society. I think we had more access to our DNA. There's, scientists say that 98% of our DNA is junk DNA. I think it's dormant. I think it's gone dormant. I think we've been asleep for a very long time, and that our ancient ancestors had access to more of this DNA. They had abilities that we can't imagine. They were advanced beyond our wildest fascinations. So eating meat was actually just a part of our like a depressed state that we went through that we're coming out of now.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I could accept that it's possible that before we started eating meat, we were more peaceful, and maybe we were even better off. Maybe we were even happier as a people. That's all fine. But it doesn't take away from the fact that we have changed so much physiologically in the past 4.5 million years, that to say that we should revert to the diet we ate before we made all these changes is pretty harmful, because physiologically we just aren't accustomed to eating a fruit, a raw fruit diet. I mean, we absolutely need meat. This is not something that all people could survive on. It just doesn't make sense. I think maybe you haven't looked into just how much we've changed in the past 4.5 million years, and maybe in doing so you would understand, like, okay, eating the diet we ate before we made all these changes is kind of foolish. Yeah, that would be my thoughts.
And I guess that brings us into results.
Sure, it's fine. Yeah, Jess, do you have any more like questions on this front?
No.
So it just seems to me that you both agree that we did eat meat, that it is a part of how we evolved. It just seems that Brandon feels that fruit, it should be the staple, and Joey, you feel that meat should be the staple. But you both agree that we evolved eating meat and fruit. So it seems like there wasn't much.
I think we devolved eating meat.
You think we devolved eating meat, but you agree
consciously and spiritually.
Okay, well, I think we did find some common ground. I mean, not a ton, but we found some, and that at least you can acknowledge, right? Because the brain grew. I mean, there's no possible way our brain could have grown that much without a lot of meat, almost exclusively meat as hypercarnivores. I mean, unless you have some sort of
there's like the stoned ape theory, we started doing psychedelics and things like that. Our brain grew tremendously from that. It's one theory.
Okay.
We started eating mushrooms and such, and
okay. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I just
theory. All of this is, well, not all of it. A lot of it is theoretical. Like, we weren't there millions of years ago in the timelines and such. But that is one theory as to why our brains grew.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just think the meat eating makes. Do you believe that theory, or do you think it's more likely that we ate meat?
I think we were seeded here. Why exactly our brains doubled in size at some time? I think that we were seeded. Other beings came here, shared their DNA. We changed a lot. We didn't just come from. We didn't come from 0 to 100, and like right now is 100. Our history is shrouded. I think that, yeah, there's extraterrestrials involved, and to bring this up in a room full of doctors, you're gonna get laughed out of the room. But there is a lot of evidence in ancient cultures talking about how we changed when visitors from the sky came. I think that a lot happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not one to go ahead.
I was just saying, I think that's a big part of us changing. I think that's a big part of our brains developing. And
okay. Yeah.
I think that there was also like sort of a predator strand of DNA that was given to us as well that we didn't have before. We didn't have the drive to kill, and we still don't. Like, I mean, I mean, I think that everyone who eats meat should kill an animal. Like if you're going to do it, and you're going to do that, and you'll have the experience, and it's kind of crazy. It's just, I'm not judging you or whatever. Like if I had to do it again, I would do it again. I've lived in tribes in Thailand and watched them kill pigs for dinner, and the squeals will haunt your memories. And it's just like, naturally, you're just like, it's weird. But like you say, that comes with some conditioning, or at least deconditioning. Like, you know, if you grow up around that, it's not weird. But I think that's part of the desensitization.
Okay. Well, as far as like the extraterrestrial stuff, I don't know enough. Like I haven't done research into any of that, and I wouldn't like automatically say like that's crazy or discount it like a lot of other people would, just because of some of the things that I've sort of came across in the past few months. I'm not just going to dismiss really anything that I'm told. I try to be pretty open-minded about stuff. But I mean, I guess we found maybe a little bit less common ground than I hoped for. If we're not agreeing that it was meat that caused the increase in size of our brains, but I guess that's fine. That's fine. If I don't know. I guess we could just move on from this topic and move on to something else.
I can also say that I don't know. You know, this is all fun theoretical discussions, but and there's all sorts of scientific theory as to how it happened. But
can I
can say I don't know for sure.
Can I pose a hypothetical to you?
Sure.
Let's say in the past 4.5 million years, you have concrete evidence that every single human being consumed at least 80% of their nutrition from meat, right? At least 80%, every human past 4.5 million years. Would that be reason enough for you to include to eat an animal-based diet, the one that mimics the evolution of humans throughout Homo? Or would you still opt for the diet that we ate prior to that, the fruit diet? Which one would you do, given that if you accept the premise?
I mean, the premise you're putting forth, there must be a study out there somewhere that you're referring to.
No, it's just purely hypothetical. There's no study.
Oh, I just don't think that's the case. I don't think that.
But if it was.
But I don't think it is though. I don't think.
But like if it was, that's why it's a hypothetical.
I guess I couldn't answer it because it's so hypothetical. I don't think that 80% of our food ever came from meat, or ever has, or ever would, at least for like the whole population. For some groups, and you know, we could go into results. We could talk about blue zones. We could talk about where people live the longest in life. We could talk about Dr. Max Gerson. We could talk about Dr. Sebi. We could talk about a lot of things where I could at least explain how raw food has helped people cure disease and stuff. But I know Carnivore has too, and we're all out here trying to help people get healthy. So that's really what matters. Honestly.
Are you sure you can't answer the hypothetical for me? Like if you were somehow like convinced that that's the case, that what I'm really trying to understand is, would you eat the diet that humans ate in the past 4.5 million years if that diet was succinctly established, that what we knew? Would you eat that diet if it wasn't fruit?
What is the diet? Like 80% meat?
Yeah. Just assume that's the case. Assume that's the case. 80% meat, 20% fruit. Would you eat that diet if that's what paralleled the one that we ate for 4.5 million years?
I would still go based off my instincts, and my instincts tell me that a sweet, watery watermelon is like what I want in my life.
Okay.
You know,
I think
my taste buds and my instincts wouldn't tell me to go for meat. So
okay, that's fine.
I can't answer a hypothetical question. I'm sorry, because there's no way that 80%. I know I would repeat what you said, but like you said, it's a hypothetical question, so it's just not the case.
Okay, so it doesn't seem like that you guys found a lot of common ground, like Joey said, on just what the natural human diet is. So you want to move on to results. So that would be basically what is best for humans today, not necessarily millions of years ago. Is that what you will be discussing?
That's fine. Yeah, we could do that, and then at the end of this, we could get into some of the other stuff like you post about, like some of the masculinity stuff and some stuff that we actually do agree on. So like we can do this first, the results, and then we could do that at the end. So that's fine.
So will the results be, is that what you guys are thinking? The results will be based on like what humans should be eating today? Is that what, or just the results of meat versus the results of vegan?
I think I need to understand more what carnivore is, because like, to me, it sounds like there's a huge difference between eating a primarily meat-based diet and then having like a little bit of like, fruit or honey or maybe some vegetables here and there, and then eating like all animal-based protein, because those two things sound just different to me. So what, for you guys, like, what is, if I could ask you, what is your perception of the healthiest diet for people being carnivore? Like, what is your practice of carnivore?
I think the best diet for humans is one that has at least, I would say 85% animal food, at least 85%, and that other 15%, it might be animal foods, it might be dairy, it might like, no, actually dairy would be in the 85%. It might be fruit, for example. For some people, it actually, I do believe that fruit might be beneficial a little bit, but definitely I believe that all humans are animal based. And as for just understanding carnivore, the carnivore community does not like, saying that someone's on a carnivore diet would not mean that they eat fruit. That's not what a carnivore diet is. A carnivore diet is just meat. So if someone, so like there's not really much confusion in that regard. It's just, it like literally means meat, like only meat. Yeah. Hyper carnivore though means 70% meat. So a lot of people like go by that term, like classify themselves as hyper carnivore. So they have that 30% to play around with other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you want my answer or no?
Yes.
So yeah, so I agree with Joey. Carnivore means eating meat. I don't think someone becomes or loses their carnivore card if they have like a blueberry or some blueberries every now and then. I think that it's more of a title of just what the diet is called, more of like, do you agree with that, Joey? Or
I think, yeah, I do. I don't think I lose my carnivore card because I have some berries or some fruit every now and then. But I think just when someone says they adhere to a carnivore diet, the implication is that they only eat meat.
Yeah. So I believe that carnivore diet means, or that a human can survive eating only meat. And if they do want to have those blueberries every once in a while for the taste, like you're saying, because it's just visually and just stimulating, that is okay, but it's not providing them really anything more beneficial than meat could.
Yeah,
it's a treat.
Right. I think that's fair. And just one more thing, I think we might differ like slightly in that regard. I think it's possible for the fruit to be beneficial to some people at some times in the year in some very limited quantities. So there's a lot of just like specifics that would go into that. But I think in some cases, fruit might actually confer benefits in small amounts.
Does that clear anything up, Brandon? Or
Yeah, no, I'm learning. I'm new to the carnivore lifestyle. So if I could I ask you guys one question? It's a little bit reverting back to the last topic, but kind of not. So we looked at the macro. We looked at like the whole evolution of human beings, but what about like the past 10 generations of your lineage and the closest to your DNA? Like, let's say you looked at what your past 10 generations ate. And I'll ask you the same hypothetical question. If that included a very high amount of, fruits and vegetables, roots, tubers, wildflowers, things like that, would you eat those things if you found out that your closest lineage ate a lot of those items?
No, it would simply mean that it's more tolerable. So it wouldn't give me a reason to go out in search of eating them. It would simply mean that I can actually tolerate them better. Like, for example, we have higher amounts of amylase, which allows us to it's like something in our mouths that allows us to basically digest carbohydrates easier. Maybe you're familiar with it, but it makes sense that would have increased in the past 12,000 years because we have implemented agriculture. So we have made slight changes. I'm not neglecting them, but I think what comprises the vast majority of human evolution is what we should stick to. So the past 10 generations are kind of negligible in the bigger picture, in my opinion.
Okay. All right.
So do you guys want to move on to the what's best for, or what the results are of each? So can we establish that that you both are okay? Brandon, you're okay with people eating meat. You said that.
It's not that I'm like okay with it or not. I mean, I don't tell people what to do. You know.
Okay. Well, because it seems like you both are okay with, or you both understand that people can eat meat and fruit, and like meat and fruit are. So what are we debating with the results of primarily eating meat and primarily eating fruit?
I guess we could just go, because instead of we could just take out the middle ground and just go fruitarians, carnivores, because I think we see enough differences there. If you want, it might make it just a little bit more convoluted if we were to take the middle group as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you, Joey, you will be defending that carnivore is, you see results with carnivore, and Brandon,
Sure.
you see the results that you see with fruitivore or vegan.
Yes, the terminology is hard because vegan is just a whack marketing term that sucks, and you guys will like me hearing that. Like, you can live on Oreo, you can be on Oreos, live on Oreos and be vegan. It's bullshit. You know,
What term do you use?
Living foods, mostly living foods, like maybe 60 to 70% of live foods, I would say.
Is that just raw? Like, so how do you contrast that with raw fruitarian? What's the distinction?
Fruitarians get a little, I don't know, dogma drips its way into everything, you know, whether it's carnivore, like I think it's extreme to go full animal, not like a blueberry every now and again. And I also think it's extreme to, depending on your blood work and how it goes for you. I know some people who've only eaten fruit for 10 years and they're doing great, but I don't think that's for everybody. So some fruitarians take it that extreme, but there's something called the 80-10-10 diet, which is a lot of people are like ultra marathon runners who want to like get their performance up as high as possible, like 80% carbs, 10% protein, 10% fats. So I guess that would be like a standard for fruitarianism. Like that's what.
Okay, so your diet is like close to raw fruitarian, but you don't like to identify with that group just because of the dogmatic side of things.
Yeah, I don't like to identify with anything ever.
Okay, I get that. No, I understand that. Cool. So, I guess we could. I mean, I don't know. Should we each like give a little opening, and then you can ask more questions after that opening, or?
Sure. Yeah. If you want to start.
Jess, you want to like do anything?
Yeah. So let's move on to the results of a carnivore diet versus a living. What did you call it, Brandon? A living.
I would say an alkaline lifestyle. If we're just going to make it really simple, alkaline lifestyle, trying to reduce acidity in the body and inflammation as much as possible. Raw vegan is a really simple way of putting it. That takes out the bullshit part of vegan. If you want to say raw vegan, you can say that too.
Okay, so we will be moving on now to what is best for humans today, or the results of a strictly carnivore diet versus a strictly raw vegan diet. Joey, do you want to start off?
Yeah, sure. So from what I've seen, a carnivore diet has done wonders for people's health, and not even just in the transition from standard diet to carnivore diet, but in the transition from keto diets where it's meat and vegetables to pure carnivore diets where you're basically cutting out vegetables. And so when people say, well, you go carnivore and you lose, you cut out all the bad foods. Well, there's plenty of cases, plenty of examples at this point, hundreds that I've seen where people take out what people consider to be the good foods like vegetables, and they eat only meat and they experience huge benefits. So that right there seems to be pretty convincing proof that the vegetables, in many cases, the so-called healthy, raw, whatever foods, plant foods, are actually conferring a detriment. Also in addition to that, I can say why I believe these fruit diets tend to not be so good, simply because the conversion rate, I can make that assumption, not necessarily because I have seen this ubiquitous deterioration of fruitarians. I don't really look at vegans deteriorating too often. Like, it's not something that spend a lot of time seeing. I spend more time studying carnivore. However, what I do know is that it's something like 90% of vegans switch back to eating meat within a very short period of time. It's like a period of several years. And there are no carnivores ever, like extremely rarely, that we switch back to eating plant-based diets. It's almost impossible. And if you think about the power in that scenario in itself, you can really just be able to understand the situation better. On carnivore, you eat literally 10 things. As a vegan, you can eat 1,000 things. So it's not a lack of variety that's driving, you know, that's driving vegans to switch back to eating meat. It's simply a lack of nutrition, in my opinion. They're malnourished and they need the nutrients that are within meat, and so they switch back. Versus carnivores, if you think about it, we only eat 10 things, and there are thousands of plant-based foods that we can't eat, and yet we stick to it because it's the best diet for obtaining nutrition. So I think that reality that's just we can observe is pretty quality evidence that a carnivore diet is best. And also just in the results that we're seeing, that just having been immersed in the space, the results that I'm seeing are just insane. It's like basically everything you could imagine, from things like tinnitus to joint pain to arthritis to every autoimmune condition, every single one, to getting your hair back, to losing body fat, to getting energy, fixing insomnia. Everything is being fixed with carnivore. And I've seen, you know, a fair amount of people go fruitarian and the exact opposite happens, where I mean, I'm sure you see cases where people do well, but from what I've seen, there's a lot of cases where they don't. And I think just the anecdotes on carnivore are a testament to the power of the diet.
Okay, Brandon, do you want to state your position?
Sure. First, I'll bring up Dr. Max Gerson. Have you guys heard of Dr. Gerson?
No.
He was one of the first people in the West to start bringing like food as medicine. Like at a certain point, especially when the Rockefellers took over like the medical industry in like 1903, when they created the General Education Board, it did away with all natural remedies. And if you were to mention herbs or any sort of like the medicines that our ancestors have been using for thousands of years, which are herbs and certain flowers and tinctures and things like that, has been like natural medicines, which real medicines are made of today, but we just extract them and we change it up a little bit so we can patent it and sell it, of course. So Dr. Gerson was one of the first people to try to introduce diet as cancer therapy. And of course, he was just run amok in the medical industry, like, oh, you're an idiot, you know, this and that. But he had really amazing results. He has over 300 double-blind studies on his work, hundreds of people in remission from stage 3 to 4. And I won't refute that there's a lot of people who get really good results on carnivore. And I think there's a few reasons for that. Is one, carnivore, you're in a fasted state a little bit. It's like the next level of keto. But you're basically like on backup reserves. It's like an emergency system. Like first we run off carbohydrates. That's the first thing the body would go to, and then it goes to metabolizing fat, turning it into carbohydrates, turning it into glucose, essentially. So I think that people do get really good results off the front, but I don't know about being in the emergency backup system for a long time, like until you're like old or something, you know. I don't know if there's any studies on being like full carnivore. I wouldn't know. Maybe you do, if there's anybody who's like 80 or 90 years old who's just like stuck with it for over 5 to 10 years or something like that. So Dr. Max Gerson got some really amazing results through mostly juicing and raw foods. And he would do enemas and coffee enemas to help people pass through all the detox that they're detoxing out of their body, help the organs of elimination. And then we have Dr. Sebi, who's not really a real doctor, but he coined the alkalinity, becoming alkaline, which essentially we have our pH balance. People talk about that this isn't legit because the blood only fluctuates between like 0.04, like, you know, and so, but that much really counts. So alkaline essentially means oxygenated, and the reason why people ever get sick is because they have lack of oxygen to their cells. Like there's a lot of other things that lead up to that, but that's basically why people get sick. So the whole point is one, a mucusless diet, taking out the mucus out of the body. When you put something foreign into it, it covers it up with mucus, and then that coats the walls. It creates malabsorption, and also in a cellular level, it creates mucus. And that's also where diabetes comes from. It's not because of sugar, it's because there's fat in the muscle cells and it's not able to absorb. Dr. Sebi invented discovered the alkaline diet, where you don't eat any hybrid foods, any like hybrid vegetables or anything like that. It's very specific. He got a lot of really good results. He was tried in court for healing people, because that's what happens when you heal people and it's not through the medical system, is they come after you. And over 90 people showed up to his court case and testified like all the healings that happened through him. He's got a big following now. So those are two big ones. Arnold Ehret, he's the inventor of the mucusless diet, and he was around from 1866 to 1922. And one of his biggest beliefs is that parasites live in the mucus in our gut, and they cause all sorts of like rampant havoc. And to get all that out, basically to clean it up and to be as clean as possible, like whatever just goes through you as quickly and easily as possible is the best for like the cleanliness of your cells, like byproducts of things like uric acid and ammonium and nitrogenous and things like that, trying to avoid those things. So he got some really good results as well. And let's see, Dr. Fred Beesky, I don't know how to say his last name. He's like 92. He's been raw vegan for 60 years. Dude's a badass. He's really awesome. Did a few like 40-day water fasts throughout his time. Sounds extreme, but that's really what led him to a lighter foods, which leads a lot of people to lighter foods, is incorporating fasting work. But he's one of the old heads. And there's a lot of people who are, if you do it right, they're in their 90s, they're in their late 80s, and they've been raw vegan for like 40 or 50 years, and they feel great. Their eyes are fucking super bright. Their skin is clear. They're cognizant. They feel really good. And so there's definitely a lot of results for raw vegan. I think one of the reasons why carnivore gets such good results is, one, you're cutting out a lot of other crap. Like people probably come to it having eaten a lot of other things in their diet, and so they're cutting out that stuff too, so that's healthy. And also you're in a fasted state, and when your body's in a fasted state from carbohydrates, it's cleaning itself, it's eating itself, it's on autophagy, and it's self-devouring. It's in its emergency backup state. So when that's happening, it's also cleaning itself out. But who knows how long the organs of elimination can take all the the byproducts of breaking down nitrogenous from the animal, and also byproducts from breaking down animal protein, which creates more like metabolic byproduct and things like that. So
okay, I'm going to interrupt, but did you have any more that you're going to say, or because it's been a little bit longer than 2 minutes?
I'm a babbler. Feel free to just cut me off anytime. It's not disrespectful at all. If you just want to jump in and be like, oh, but this, you can do that. So
okay, so Joey, are there, to go off what he was saying, 90, like, are there long-term carnivores that, like 90-year carnivores, do we know how this diet will affect humans long-term?
There are no long-term, like super studied carnivores as far as I know. I mean, we have the populations, of course, the Inuit, the Maasai, who basically eat only meat, but that's not even what I needed to be convinced. I mean, when I started this, I was convinced, just understanding that the natural human diet was one that was predominated by meat. Because the thing is, like, again, I don't mean to be repetitive, but it's such an important point that I feel like I need to re-stress it. And that when animals eat their natural diet in nature, they thrive. We can all agree on that. Animals that eat their natural diet, they don't get sick, right? If those animals were to eat a novel diet that's new to their physiology, that they're unaccustomed to, then they do get sick. And it's the same thing with humans. I think we're all sort of in agreement here to a degree, right? In that, like, when humans are eating a novel diet, the processed sugars, the refined grains, the seed oils, all this stuff, it's going to make you sick. This stuff is new to us. Now, what Brandon, what you think is that the meat is, potentially one of those things that can be grouped into a category of stuff that's potentially harmful. And even though I believe that meat was basically all of what humans ate for 4.5 million years, and therefore meat is something that we should eat, while fruit in excess being something that we probably didn't eat as much of in the past 4.5 million years is something that shouldn't predominate the human diet, but something that could be used as just an addition in some cases for some people. Now, you mentioned a couple things there. You talked about like a fasted state, and you talked about like diabetes and some different things that I just want to really quickly touch on. So when you say that like carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of fuel, like it's because it's the stuff that we use first. Yes, absolutely. It's the stuff that we used first. And I believe that the reason why we use carbohydrates first is because prolonged high blood sugar is manifested diabetes. We don't want to have prolonged high blood sugar because it glycates our organs, it glycates the glycocalyx. Advanced glycation end products are found in the eyes of people with macular degeneration. I mean, these are no joke when your body basically degrades itself. So I believe that your body is basically moving the sugar out of circulation so it can be utilized first. And then as far as carnivore being a starvation state, or even a more extreme starvation state than keto, because it's autophagy is going on. Well, autophagy doesn't start until you're fasted for, I believe it's like 16 to 18 hours or something. So yeah, and also the actual you like using your own tissue, like breaking down your own muscle, that's a catabolic state, and that doesn't happen when you're eating just meat and fat in adequate amounts of it. It simply won't happen. Your body's just going to use the fat on your frame first. But it's kind of interesting that you mentioned like the breaking down of your own bodies. I mean, haven't you seen like plenty of videos of fruitarians who are basically just looking very, very sick? I mean, they're pale, they're small. I mean, I'm sure we've all seen them. There's plenty of vegans or raw vegans or whatever who just really don't look good after a period of time. What would you attribute that to, if not the raw veganism itself?
They're not eating enough. Yeah.
Okay.
I will say, I will retract something. Autophagy is a catabolic state, and when you're eating meat, you're not in a catabolic state. You're more in an anabolic state. Your muscles are growing more so. But at the same time, I think my main point is like the longevity of it. I think it does work. I think it doesn't matter what I think. It does work. You get amazing results. You see a lot of people get amazing results. My concern is just like the long-term effects.
So Brandon, to clarify, you believe that the health issues that are developed through raw vegan are because people aren't doing it correctly?
What health issues?
Like when you see these videos of people with like their teeth falling out, their hair falling out, and when raw vegans do talk about the health issues they're experiencing, you attribute that to them not eating enough or them not doing it correctly?
I'm not aware of the teeth and hair falling out. The hair falling out can come from B12 deficiency. So people probably should be supplementing with B12, because we don't live in an ideal world, because the soil's been raped, and because our body doesn't produce it anymore. So that's pretty much the only thing you need to supplement with. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people are kind of egoic about it, and they're like, oh, I don't need B12, when really you do. And I'll accept that. That's okay. And it depends on how people feel too, because there is a societal like idea of what a person's supposed to look like, and if a person's thin, then like they're unhealthy. Again, there's an ultra runner. His name's Michael something. I can't remember his last name. He follows the 80-10-10 diet. He's thin as a stick, but he can run 100 miles. So what people look like isn't always, But I think that was also because I mentioned autophagy, and that was how that got. That was why you mentioned that frugivores look thin. When autophagy is that's really probably not the word I was looking for. But I think that being in full carnivore it is the emergency backup system, and there's no backup system for the backup system, and so that's my concern for it. But rather than talking negatively about carnivore, I don't want to do that because it gets results. talking positively about raw vegan, there's a lot of people who go that route and they never go back, because going back, the big reason why people go back, and people, like you said, specifically, people go back, cut me off at any time, people go back, it's usually a few years after, but not after. It's because people are still detoxing. If you don't do some sort of a fast or a cleanse or a juice cleanse or a water cleanse and get that stuff out of you, I got 25 pounds out of my colon, dude. And on average, it's 10 to 20 years old. When you see someone who's skinny fat, that's shit. There's stuff, if you've never cleaned out your colon, there's 14 to 15 meals backed up in your colon. So at some point in your life, whether it's water or juice or whatever it is, we should try to get that cleaned out, because when people go vegan, it's like putting new wine in an old wine cellar. You don't want to do that. You want to clean out the cellar. And so why vegans go back is because they didn't detox correctly, and their body isn't able to absorb properly, and to it's a full-on elimination diet, and they're still having detox symptoms 3 years in, instead of just getting it done and doing like a long juice fast or a long water fast. So that can be a big reason why people go back a lot, I think. Also because a lot of things in meat are very stimulating. Like the uric acid is very close to the chemical structure of caffeine. It gives a big boost. There's adrenaline in the meat. There's adrenochrome. There's the bacterial like endotoxins create stimulus as well, and so it is stimulating. So that's another reason people might want to go back, is because they haven't cleared that out of them. Just like if someone was doing substance for a certain amount of time and they didn't detox correctly, they're going to go back. And like I've had that, because I only say that because I went back and forth from meat so often. I've got the feeling, now I'm going to personal experience, but I got the feeling of that in going back and forth from the stimulus and then finally detoxing and then not having any craving for it anymore. But I do think a lot of people go vegan and they don't do it right. They don't care about nutrition. They do it because they want to try a fad. They live on Oreos, doesn't work out. Or they go raw vegan or fruitarian and they don't eat enough, and they get thin, and they're just not doing it properly. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I don't know about people going back to meat because there's some stimulating effects of it. I mean, maybe eating meat like has the effect of stimulation, which it very well might, but not because of the uric acid or like a molecule closely resembling uric acid or adrenaline or things like that. I believe it's just simply nutrient deficiencies that are being resolved due to eating meat. Like there's tons of examples of people who go vegan for a very, very long time. And I've spoken with many, like so many of them at this point, and they describe that first piece of meat after so long being vegan. And it's not like, oh, like I have some energy now, of this like energy boosting effect. Like, no, they wake up for the first time in 3 years and they don't poop blood every day for 10 times a day. And they don't, they actually have a clear head, and they don't have a raging stomach ache. Like crazy transformations just from eating a single piece of meat after being vegan for such a long period of time. And I think it's just too much to just ascribe all of that to like some little stimulants that are in meat. And then you touched on something else that I could just briefly talk about, the ultra running, which seems to be pretty common amongst vegans, but I don't think there's I don't know how this really relates to the point. I don't think there's really anything healthy about being able to run for like an insane amount of time or an insane distance. I don't think that because you can do that, you are necessarily healthy. I really don't believe that. There's actually really good evidence that it destroys your immune system after a long run. That's why people are in bed for days post like strenuous workout. It's just, really, really damaging and stressful to the body. So I wouldn't say that because these vegans can run for a long time that this makes them healthy at all. Which, I mean, if they're lighter, then of course you can probably get more distance. But again, I don't think it's a marker for good health. Yeah.
So Brandon, I do have a question. You mentioned that some health issues that raw vegans do have is due to a lack of or deficiency in B12, which you can find in animal products, and you suggest that they supplement B12. So are you saying that there used to be B12, or so the raw vegan diet is lacking B12 and you need to supplement? Is your point that plants used to have B12 and we didn't need the B12? Like when we evolved, did we not need B12 in your opinion? Why do we need B12 now?
I think there are some people who don't need to supplement. There are some people, like I have two friends, they're fruitarian, they've been fruitarian for 2 years, they just got their blood work done and their B12's fine. It's like a couple marks below average, but they're fine. It's not at any level that would cause any sort of health. I think it depends on the person. But I think most people who aren't getting it from meat should, sorry, I'm messing with my computer right now, take a B12. But I do think that at some point, like there's a lot of studies saying that we used to produce it, and also, we're missing the microbiome from the food that we eat. Like that's a big part of what populates our gut health is the microbiome from the soil, from fruits and vegetables that come straight out of the ground. And instead of putting a bunch of chemicals on it and glyphosate and a bunch of stuff and cleaning it with chlorine and cleaning all that stuff off, we don't have a complete gut brain. It's not complete, it's not finished. And so I think that at some point we absolutely did get our B12 from the environment, or we made it ourselves, but we don't do it anymore. So we have to supplement now. Most people do. There's actually, very quickly, I won't ramble so much, but there's something called, how do I get out of this freaking view I'm in on this confounded computer? 1 second. I have to read about it because I don't know enough about it. I got the page up right here. All right, it's called MTHFR gene. Almost 50% of US Americans are deficient in B12 because they don't have they don't methylate is what it's called. They have poor methylation, which essentially is it's like due to this enzyme is called MTHFR. They call it the motherfucker gene. And a lot of people, like 50% of people, have this gene where their liver actually doesn't methylate properly and produce B12. So most people are B12 deficient. Most people, if you're not eating a crazy amount of meat, like you should be taking B12 anyway, because we don't live in an ideal world anymore. And we're damaged. The human body is damaged. It's been damaged for a while now, unfortunately.
Yeah, a lot of vegans bring up that point. It's like, well, we survived eating plants for a long time only because we got B12 from the soil, and the reason why a lot of vegans are deficient in B12 now is because the soil's changed, and all that makes sense. I still think that that there's plenty of other evidence that we can cite as to why we're naturally meat eaters. I know we moved past that topic, but this is sort of relevant in that case. But just B12, we need a lot of it. We benefit from a lot of it, I think, and I think it's a pretty good indication that eating meat is beneficial, considering B12 is basically an animal hormone. So yeah, I'm thinking about where else we can go on this front.
So Brandon, are you aware that the B12 that you find like in seaweed or in some plants is not the same as B12 that's found in animal proteins?
I know there are different types of B12.
And as far as I'm aware, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Joey, we need the B12 that's in the animal products, right?
Yeah, no, we need the B12 we need the animal hormone B12. It's basically that was basically the source of our B12. There's actually a lot of reasons why exogenous B12, like B12 injections, B12 pills, may actually be highly toxic, along with a lot of other supplements. They're industrial, they're made in big industry and warehouse. Like it's just not optimal at all, rather than just getting a clean source of meat to supply your B12 needs.
Yeah. I still think that at some point in history, we either created our own B12 or we got the sufficient B12 from our environment. I think it was the pancreas or one of our organs. So I'll have to find the study, but they're suggesting that we used to create it and that we don't anymore. because it is an animal hormone, and as animals we made it. Like, so.
Well,
We're-
this is also interesting. I mean, it makes sense if we lost the ability to make it, if we can just eat it from the animals that we ate. Like that makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, why would we continue making it if we were eating so much meat that it was just in the animals? I don't know. I think there's a lot of just signs that point to like a conclusion that.
It makes sense. A lot of other compounds work the same way, like creatine. Like if you take a supplement of creatine, your body stops making it, or testosterone. If you're taking a crazy amount of supplemental testosterone,
Okay.
So
okay. So how about this? I mean, creatine is one of the most studied things out there. Like it's the most studied supplement. Why is it creatine isn't found in animal cells, only in animal cells? Why is it that creatine is so beneficial for just making muscle and it enhances cognition? There's a study that showed eating creatine advanced cognition in vegetarians who weren't really getting much of it. Why would that be the case if, say, we were plant-based for like a really long time and we didn't use creatine and we can just thrive on the amount that our body makes? Sorry, I don't mean to ramble on, but to me, it makes a lot of sense that we benefit from eating like 5 grams of creatine in a supplement, because that's how much we would have gotten eating meat every day for millions of years. And it's just like returning to a natural amount of creatine consumption.
Yeah. The only thing I know about creatine is I used to take it in powder form when I lifted weights, and it put a lot of water in my muscles, made me feel swole. That's all I know about it. So you definitely
well, like that. That's
creatine.
one thing. It also just increases your ATP output. No, it does a fair amount. Yeah, I don't know. Okay.
Wait, can I ask you guys a question? What do you think about? Do you think that there's more than your physical body when it comes to your system? That there's more than like the physicality of it, essentially. Like, do you believe that you are like a spirit in your body having it? And there's no dogma, no judgment, like if you're an atheist or whatever. Like, what is do you have a belief, not religious, it could be religious, that's fine too, that there's more than just like a biological functioning body and just like chemicals and vitamins and whatnot, macros and micros, these things as such.
Like as in as in distinguishing a spirit from our physical presence.
I could say just like the biofield, like the energetic biofield. Like we found it recently, we were able to measure it. Carillion photography is one way. Like there's a whole wave of like biological, like quantum doctors, quantum physicists who are using technologies today to be able to measure the light in people's mitochondria and like biophoton production in the body. Have you guys ever heard of biophotons?
No, but
it's very interesting. Sorry, go ahead. I was about to ramble on another.
Okay. I don't think it's probably not the case that we have some we're like existential beings, and we have a spirit that's can be distinguished from our own physical presence. I think that I believe that it's just our own physiology, our own input, like just biochemistry that informs the way our brain works, the way we think, the way we act. I don't think that there's some outside force just from that's like what I would say based on my like life experiences and just what I know, but I'm always open to learning things. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, nobody really knows.
Are we moving on to a new topic, or are we going to conclude the other thing, or just to have like
what were we on results? Is that what we were doing?
Yeah. Do we want to end that? Because it seems like you guys didn't find much common ground there either.
I think there's great results on carnivore. We just don't know about the long-term stuff, and that's probably where I'm at with carnivore. I don't know nearly as much as you do with the results you've seen, but I know people get results. I think that's because people they go mono meal, they go simple, they cut out BS, and but we just don't know like long term. But I guess we'll know. But yeah, I think we found some common ground. Like I think I have some clients who I work with who I tell them I'm not like, hey, go raw or go home. Like if they want to have some animal protein, then it's fine. I just don't know about being fully carnivore. And personally, just like my experience of the times that I have been fully raw. I'm not right now. I had some cooked food recently. I just feel fucking really good. Just like you're taking MDMA, you're taking Molly. You don't do it. But or if you do find like a clinical, like if you're with a doctor and you know what you're doing, do it. And like
Joey, edit this part out of your video.
Not well. I mean, this is psychedelic therapy. This is becoming more accepted. You can edit this out if you want to. Do it in a laboratory setting. Like do it properly, and you can get a feel for what serotonin feels like. And so the serotonin is our happy chemical, right? And 90% of it is produced in our gut. And when I'm eating raw foods, I can feel the serotonin is so high. And the reason I can tell is because I have experienced the rush of that in itself. Yeah. And so that's another thing is it's not just like there's so much more to health than like, okay, my ailments are gone. I'm not constipated, like, this and that. Emotions live in the body chemically. Like we can be sick that way. There's a lot more than just food too,
Okay.
I might be rambling.
Yeah. Well, I guess just to like end this topic. I mean, yeah, it's there are lots of accounts of people who go raw vegan and they feel great for a year, or maybe even longer. They feel really good. They get a lot of results. Just as far as I'm concerned, from what I've seen, and I have been very objective when I've looked at these things. I actually tried veganism at like one point. I've tried everything. I've been very objective, and as I sort of go throughout my life so far, and what I found, super overwhelming majority of people who go carnivore stick to it relative to raw vegans or any sort of diet. And it's not even that carnivore is more restrictive. It's not. I just think it works better. It's more effective. And as far as just long-term benefits, I mean, we don't know for sure, like 100%, because we do, while we do have the populations, we don't have a randomized like placebo-controlled trial with a person or like two twins and like locking them in separate rooms. Like we don't have this thing to establish 100% causality, but we do have our evolution, which I think it's safe to say was comprised, with regards to diet, primarily of animal meat and animal fat. And so I think to say that our natural diet is somehow going to harm us in the long run is kind of not really founded, and it's not grounded in logic. So I mean, that would be my thing. We see results on both sides without question. I just think the carnivore results are better. I think it makes sense why the carnivore results are better, given that we're well accustomed to eating meat. So I mean, we have some common ground, but just we can keep it moving to just the next thing where we talk about some other stuff.
Wonderful. So what was the next topic that you wanted to talk about? Something that we all kind of agree on too is problems with masculinity in our culture, things like that. Is that what you were thinking of, Joey?
We could, unless there's something else you want to ask about the actual diet thing, which there's more we could touch on it if you have questions or you think would be helpful to people.
Brandon, what do you think?
I think like life itself is tangible and it has a substance. I'm gonna sound like a hippie right now, but we can measure it. And if we're not eating some living foods, we're missing out on the vital life force energy that makes all this stuff go. And so that's just like a huge point that I just want to throw out there. And we can measure that through measuring people's electromagnetic systems. Like we're electromagnetic beings. That's why fruit is great, is it helps the currents flow, helps the communication. very bright, very high frequency. Nikolai Tesla, one of the greatest minds of our time, said that if we want to understand the secrets of the universe, think of things as vibration, frequency, and resonance. If we break it down, we break it down. If we keep going into the micro, there's so much more than chemicals and macros and micros. It's all just every atom in your body is 99.9% space. There's just a lot more than the physicality. And this is what's really brought me to like a lighter food lifestyle, and suggested that for other people. And I see improvements in mood and things like that from that. But just a quick quote, and then we can move on to masculinity, which we can agree on. That'll be fun. On average, our biophotons are between 1,000 and 23,000. By the way, a biophoton is just it's a unit of light within your body. Like when an ATP explodes and it makes light, it's similar to that. Everything is made of light, like in the world. We've proven this. You can look up these studies for fun later. And so our body, we're light beings. Our physical body as well as our spirit is made of light. And so if you keep going down into the cell and into the atoms, so we're between 1,000 and 23,000 on average. We're born at 43,000 biophoton count, and we're supposed to be at 83,000. And so this is essentially what is going to really help boost someone's spirits, and also the communication between the cells and the physiological level. That's why eating some living foods can be really beneficial. But it's the language used behind the electromagnetic field, the biofield. This is new science, and it's not really accepted in like the medical culture yet. But hopefully it will be soon. We'll see. But I'm ready to.
Brandon, after everything, so say that you both kind of agreed that, or you both did agree that we evolved on fruit initially, and then we Joey says we went to meat. You say we devolved when we started eating meat. But in the terms of today, the humans that we are today and now, we do need B12. We do need things that are found in animal products. Would you consider? Would you agree that with that we do need animal products today? Maybe millions of years ago we could survive solely on meats or fruits, but today we are a species that needs animals, whether it be a de-evolution or evolution, but we do need them.
Well, no, because there's plenty of people who live their entire life without ever eating meat once, and they're fine. So
I don't think
without taking supplements or anything.
No, not without eating meat at all. I don't think there's been a single human who's lived past like 70 who's never eaten. No, like not even 70. It's just not possible to live your whole life without eating meat unsupplemented. There's no way.
Well, there's a whole culture, the Hindu culture. They have milk. They do raw milk. They might get their B12 that way.
Yeah, definitely. But
the idea was meat. We're talking about meat. So
fair. That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. But you're not so an animal product, like some sort of animal product. Right? So milk is a way that they get B12.
I mean, if we're strictly talking about B12, yeah, that would be the way they get their B12.
Yeah.
But I think that there's also, I think there's probably plenty of people who don't eat meat their entire life and don't have cow products as well. They don't completely rely on animals.
You think there's people who live like like their whole lives and they never have any animal products ever without supplements?
Well, I can think of like 4 or 5 long-term raw vegans who are in their like late 80s.
Okay, that's fine. But I'm talking about from like birth.
No,
like there's no way. There's just no way.
No, humans need milk as babies, but we need human milk.
Right.
And then when our thyroid is done, then we don't need milk anymore. So, but we do need milk up until like the age of 7. It's completely necessary to be healthy. But we need like breast milk.
So 7.
Oh, well, I mean, that's when our thyroid is completely done, but we need breast milk at some point in our life while we're developing. Not until 7.
Okay.
But that's when I thought. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Joey,
I guess.
where do you want to go from here? That was one of my questions that I wanted to ask, just to get clarification on that.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think I don't really want to continue being like going in circles and just being repetitive. So I'm not going to. I guess just to sum it up, just the main points. I think humans evolved on meat. We see the best results from people who eat only meat. Veganism is simply not sustainable from a health perspective. We could talk about the environment, I guess, if you want to, but from simply a health perspective, there's no way. We we no longer have the ability to ferment fiber and turn it into saturated fat like our primate ancestors or alleged ancestors do. So to me, everything just points in the direction of carnivore being best for health and plant-based foods being solely the foods we would eat during times of starvation. Maybe not fruits, but vegetables without question, certainly starvation foods. So I guess that would just be where I close it off. And I'm happy to talk about some other stuff that we actually agree on. Like there is a fair amount. I looked at your Instagram, but that's my thoughts on as far as diet goes. Just closing thoughts, yeah.
Brandon, do you have any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I do think that, meat has been a part of human history. There's no denying that. I do think that many other foods are as well, though. I can at least say that for sure. Like our ancestors, when we really started thriving and becoming like huge communities is when we started farming. That's when we became communities of 100, 1,000, of more and more, is when we started farming, started growing maize and beans and corn and squash and stuff like that. That's when humans really started taking off. So I think that fruits and veggies have been a part. Maybe not like you're talking necessarily like leafy greens, and we're not able to like ferment that, but there's more than just like hard leafy greens, But yeah, that's when.
I have a question for both. Oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you, just like out of curiosity. Do you think, because as we know, humans really started developing, making societies, inventing things as soon as we like the agricultural revolution started, like that's when everything sort of picked up. Do you think that it was the agriculture itself that enabled us to do that, like the actual consumption of plants and sugar and stuff like that, or do you think it was just by coincidence, or there was something else, some other confounder? I'm just curious. I asked a lot of people in the carnivore space this and get different answers.
I'd say it just allowed us to get out of survival mode of just waking up every day and being like, all right, where's my food? That's it. That's all I'm thinking about. Being in the lower. You ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Yeah.
The pyramid. It also represents the 7 chakra systems, but at the bottom you've got like, I got to eat, I got to survive, and then above that it's like, okay, I got family, I want to be loved, and then above that it's like, oh, I want to help people, and that goes to the top. So I think it got us out of survival mode, and then we were able to thrive essentially as human beings. We were able to thrive more and not have to just be in survival mode, which I think is the reason we were hunter-gatherers for so long in the first place. And then once we got agriculture going, we got a system, we got organized, and I think we were still eating meat, but I don't think it was, once we had the choice and we could just do agriculture, I think we did that like primarily, and we became more successful because we weren't in survival mode. We were able to sit down in one place and get grounded and think about other things other than where am I going to get my food today.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know we're going backwards a little bit, but because you bring that up,
Okay.
I need to raise a point. A concept sort of called or like a concept that has to do with how humans would have progressed as a species if we were constantly foraging for food all the time. Like if we didn't eat much meat, meat is obviously nutrient dense, calorie dense, it's just energy dense, period. If we weren't eating much meat throughout, human evolution, that would mean that we would have had to constantly be searching for food, like other primates do, like gorillas. They basically just eat all day, like just looking for leaves and stuff. So I feel like that's another reason why eating meat makes sense. You basically take down one single animal, you have food for a very long period of time, and as humans you can focus on the things that are fundamental to being humans, like raising children, passing down information, being in groups, being the social beings that we are. And it just wouldn't have been realistic with eating a bunch of plants. It's just a minor point I just wanted to bring up.
I would ask you then, Joey, not that I disagree with you, but aren't primates social beings?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just there's a reason why we've been able to go so much further than they have, because we don't have to spend our time, like you said, this hierarchy of needs. We don't have to spend our time fixating on the basically number one basic most essential one, which is getting food. We can get food relatively easily by killing a single animal and living off that meat, and then doing other things that sort of allow us to grow as people. That was where I was getting at. Yeah.
Sweet.
As far as the agriculture, I think that it makes sense what Brandon is saying too, that it freed us from worrying about where our next meal is going to come from and allowed us to focus on other things that humans like to focus on, like you said too. I think we all agree on that.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's just so some people have talked about the unique effects of sugar on the brain, like not necessarily saying that because sugar may have allowed us to innovate, that sugar is the best thing for human health. It could very well be that sugar gave us a creativity in some sort of way to innovate, but it's not necessarily the best thing for health or longevity or whatever. So I've just heard a lot of really interesting ideas in that regard. But yeah, I actually don't have much time. I need to go to something, so I guess maybe we can do the masculinity thing. Unfortunately, I do have to go, but it's I have a couple more minutes, so if you guys want to bring something else up.
So I do, if you don't mind, Brandon. The sugar thing you're talking about is interesting, that because plants do, as we know, have like psychedelic effects. So perhaps there is an aspect to the sugar helping with creativity, because plants are known to be drugs and have those effects on humans. So I think that is an interesting point. And sugar is a plant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so too. It's a cool idea. It needs more research though. Like why we started developing as soon as agriculture began. It's an interesting sort of topic to peruse a little bit. Yeah. All right, is that
mass produced? It seems like.
Yeah. All right. If that's it, I guess.
Did you want to touch on the masculinity thing? You said you had to go. Did you have a couple minutes for that?
I have 15 minutes if we want to talk about that really quick.
Okay, so let's jump into a topic that you both do agree on for a moment. The masculinity and culture. So Joey, do you want to just kick us off with that and share your thought?
Yeah, I think what men have become is embarrassing and honestly kind of appalling. Just the standard of men today, saying that men can be fat, we can be weak, we don't have to reach our best state of health. Just a bunch of movements going on with men that are just really destroying us, that we don't need to, be strong, and that there's no longer a need for us to be providers. And I think all these things are just very harmful to men. And I'm not very fond of the whole woke movement that is just demasculating us, really. And we can see that in losses in testosterone. And you don't even need to quantify it in any way. You can just look at what men are today. And I think it's cool that we are somewhat in alignment on this topic.
For sure. I think, yeah, I completely agree. It's I gotta be careful on how I word it, because the way I don't think anything's by accident, so I have to be like careful of how does that make sense? Like, Like
Well,
nothing just happens on.
if
So
it's not, but so what is like someone orchestrating it kind of in your opinion? Like people want men to just be weaker today, you
how
think?
how what's the best way to control people?
In my opinion,
First,
in my opinion, the best way to control a population is to malnourish them, which in my opinion is like feeding them grains and no animal foods. It makes
like
you pretty
like in,
susceptible to, yeah.
like insect protein, that shit.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah.
We can agree on that. Like, okay, if anyone's watching this, don't ever eat Beyond Meat. Don't ever eat any of the soy or any of the tofu, none of that stuff. It's all horse shit. You don't want any of that in your body. We can definitely all agree on that. But one of the ways to control people is to destroy the family unit. If
Mm.
everybody's just individuals and nobody's together and just compact like that, like you can't break apart a strong family. And the strong family is rooted with a strong woman and a strong man. And the woman can't be a strong woman if the man's not a strong man, and vice versa. And I think they're attacking women as well. They're telling women, hey, a career is way better than being a mom. Like making money, you should make just as much money as men, and that's a lot more fulfilling than being an at-home mom. And like being an at-home mom, you're submitting to the patriarch. Don't do that. And a man can't be a man if a woman, what makes a man is a woman is feminine and makes you want to be a man. You know what I mean? So I think they're starting there as well. They're attacking women as well, and
No,
a lot of
definitely.
a lot of social
Absolutely.
engineering and weird
So,
stuff happening like
so
that.
what do you both suggest is a solution to this problem? Since you agree on the problem.
It's hard. It's really hard. I think number one would be to stop telling women and men to go against their natural instincts. Like men have a natural instinct to provide and protect, while women tend to want to be mothers. And a lot of people, especially in school, like having been in school in LA and just super woke environment where they're basically telling all these girls, go into STEM and make a difference when they clearly don't want to. I mean, it's yeah, as countries become more egalitarian, the differences between men and women grow. They don't get smaller, and that there are even less women who pursue STEM in like more egalitarian like Scandinavian countries versus the United States. The reason for that is because when women have the choice to do what they want, they're not going to pursue these careers that men are more drawn to, as often as they would in more controlled countries. Women want to be with people. Men typically can do more independent things. Women have a natural urge to be with people. And it's just really strange because we're totally going against our biological desires and just inclinations. And we're proposing these totally new, unfounded, ridiculous ideas and setting new standards for what the dynamics should look like between men and women. And it's extremely harmful because, like, as Jordan Peterson says, as you know, maybe we're all familiar with him. He talks about just how the women find themselves to be very unsatisfied with life, as do men, but he was talking in this context about women. They're unsatisfied with life when they're working an office job in late, they're older and nearing the post-reproductive stage, and they haven't had kids, and they have this moment where kids are very, very important, and they realize that that's what they wanted. And so again, it's just the things that we're telling people, both men and women alike, that is just really disrupting lives because it's going against our biology, our just natural desires.
Brandon, what do you believe is the solution?
To get off the damn phones and just get back into nature. Get back into nature. The more time that we spend in nature, closer to nature, closer to and further away from culture, essentially, and social engineering, then we'll just fall into our natural state. We don't have to try too hard, I don't think we
Exactly.
have to for sure. The more people decide, hey, I'm going to move off grid. I'm going to, maybe not completely, but I'm going to get my own place, have a family, things like that. I think we're going to see a pretty decent split where a lot of people are going to go into smart cities and stuff like that. They're going to get the chip. They're going to do all that stuff. A lot of people are going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have a family. I'm going to do this. And there's going to be decisions to be made. And Yeah, as for solutions, people getting back into nature, man, and
Totally
like
agree.
physically,
Yeah.
like physically, like go into nature, go on hikes, go move there, move out of the city, if you can, you know, if you a lot of people are remote now, so that's an option for a lot more people. And maybe start with a weekend hike, and you'll be blown away. You'll be like, oh my God, I feel all my stress going away. I just feel so much better. And start there, and then you'll be like, oh, I want to spend more time there. And maybe that's a solution. Is certain individuals will just get called back, and I think it'll be a natural process. Hopefully, you know, more.
Okay, well, gentlemen, this has been a great discussion. Not really too much of a debate, actually. It was a great discussion. You guys were both very courteous and cordial. So I enjoyed listening, and thank you again so much for sharing your opinions.
Thanks for moderating. It was good, and it was good talking to you, Brandon.
Good talking to you guys too. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Sure. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Bye.
Bye.